Hi everyone, this is Perfume Coast, so welcome to my channel. As I continue talking about notes and profiles in the perfumery, today I've decided to dedicate my podcast entirely to a very popular note, being vanilla. So without further ado, let's jump into the ocean of perfumes. So vanilla to me in the perfumery is one of those versatile notes that's very appropriate to be worn both in summer and in winter, all because it all depends on how it's done and how it's embedded into the fragrance composition. But the first fragrance I'd like to talk about is called Nuit and Confidence by Goutal. And very quickly, let's get reminded of the notes that Fragrantica is listing. So on the top we've got black pepper and bergamot, in the middle is tonka bean, incense and white flowers, and finally in the base there's vanilla and white musk. So this is quite a complex fragrance. It's multifaceted and multi-layered. It starts off as a delicious, slightly dark, somewhat sweet vanilla, but very quickly it starts giving off other dimensions, some of which are quite unique and even unexpected. Subtle initial darkness starts to convert into a smoky territory, but this smokiness never gets warm or comforting. It's in fact quite a cold, smoky undertone, contributing to the overall standoffish character that this perfume has. And this quality remains while vanilla and, sweetness get amplified too, which is kind of contradictory, isn't it? However, strangely enough, this doesn't create any clash whatsoever. But in fact, it gives something quite the opposite. Vanilla sweetness gets calmer and more interesting because of this incensey, cold, smoky undertone. And this undertone here is in fact stone-cold, giving off images of some medieval cathedral perhaps. And if not for a sweet vanilla, so it would have remained perhaps. But altogether in the end, this odd concoction creates somewhat on the gourmand side, giving off remote images of burnt cheesecake perhaps. And it's very interesting because this sort of dessert should have probably been this warm smoky undertone, which here is not the case whatsoever. But it works for this imagery quite nicely anyway somehow. Very unisex, cold-season fragrance which caters perfectly to both evening and day occasion, as the texture of the fragrance is not thick at all. It almost has this amazing translucency to it. Projection is amazing, and in the air somehow coldness is hardly detectable, but vanilla that I'm smelling is fluffy, buttery and delicious. Talking of gourmands, next one is a true representative of this profile, and this one is called Vanille Extreme by the house that's unfortunately not talked very often anymore. It's called Comptoir Pasifique. So the bottle is like this, but very quickly let's have a look at the notes that this one is having. So according to Fragrantica, what we're dealing here with would be the notes of heliotrope, sugar and vanilla. In the middle there's milk and vanilla, and in the base, yet again, we've got milk and vanilla. So this one starts with bright and sweet vanilla that's similar to a vanilla extract perhaps. Its sweetness is very, moderate though, but this vanilla has this doughy undertone reminding me of a cookie dough. Fragrantica suggests lactonic accord, and indeed there's this cold milk effect, but not the one that's on the forefront though. It sort of nicely supports this sweet doughy vanilla mix that's about to go to the oven. Very delicious bright example of a gourmand fragrance that's all year round wear, because cold milk undertone provides this cooling off effect that suits warmer seasons nicely. I believe this cold milk effect is secured here by a note of heliotrope that has this almondy quality, always providing this fresh, cold dimension to me. Next one doesn't really need any introduction. It belongs to the house Xerjoff, refers to the line Casamorati, and it's called Dama Bianca. So very quickly, let's get reminded of this popular one. So according to Fragrantica, we've got kumquat and lime on the top. In the middle there's violet, Italian iris, lilac, Egyptian jasmine, lily of the valley. And finally in the base we've got vanilla, malt, white musk, ambrette, sandalwood and cedar. So this one is again very popular in the fragrance community, and for a good reason. It's a delicious gourmand vanilla that's not heavy or thick. Having all the qualities of a classic vanilla fragrance, it doesn't overpower with its overly sweetness or thickness whilst remaining quite strong. It's one of those fluffy powdery vanilla perfumes that I know. At the same time, prominent powderiness doesn't provide any cosmetic vibe, as the case may be very often. So this vanilla is fluffy and very, very sweet, giving me association with sugar powder on the top of my vanilla dessert perhaps. Another very popular association I've heard many times, and I happen to agree, is this ballerina fairy fluffy outfit in pastel colors. One of my favorite vanilla fragrances that's not difficult to understand, and the one that will certainly deliver all the intended qualities such as gourmand territory, sweetness and powderiness. Apparently the name of this fragrance suggests a reference to a well-known dessert of ice cream called Dama Bianca or Dame Blanche in French, which is effectively vanilla ice cream with chocolate sauce and whipped cream. But strangely, I disagree, because this perfume is not buttery or creamy at all, which this dessert is, but something a lot lighter and ethereal. By the way, fluffy powder effect is supported here largely by the note of violet, which compared to iris or orris, for example, always wears lighter and classy in my view. Next up is yet another release by the house Xerjoff. This one is a more pricier category, and this one is called Allende. So this is just a masterpiece to me, but first thing first, let's have a look at the notes that Fragrantica is listing. So here what we've got is the following. So on the top we've got Madagascar Vanilla and Magnolia. In the middle we've got yet again Madagascar Vanilla and Cacao this time. And finally in the base is Madagascar Vanilla yet again. So this one is a bit from the same street as Vanille Extreme reviewed earlier. Similar to that one, Allende is the strong, doughy vanilla that's straight gourmand. But here our doughy vanilla is a lot more natural, buttery and complex. And it hardly gives association with cookie dough this time, but rather it's our delicious vanilla custard that made from scratch, where a bit of wheat flour has just been added. It's indeed this custardy, gooey texture that this fragrance provides tons of. Another association would be vanilla cheesecake mixture before you pop the whole thing into the oven. For some reason, I agree that literally no one talks about this beautiful vanilla fragrance, while it's simply a masterpiece, as said before. It's, again, our extremely natural, buttery, gooey vanilla that's not too sweet and not too heavy. But true to Xerjoff releases, of course, its projection is massive, and so is longevity. Big recommendation to any gourmand fan who is looking for both traditional gourmand vanilla and a bit of complexity at the same time, which is usually quite hard to achieve. But not here. Here the synergy is achieved to a T, I thought. Next up, we have two vanilla forward fragrances made by the house Maison Tahite. So this would be the first fragrance called Vanextasy. And very quickly, let's have a look at the notes that this one is having. So according to Fragrantica, what we've got here on the top is the note of coconut, caramel and milk. In the middle there's vanilla absolute, Peru balsam, and finally in the base there's sandalwood and cedar. So this one opens up, no surprises there, with a bright vanilla, of course. It's also a gourmand one, but this time around it also has a coconutty undertone to it. And this coconut, in combination with caramel note on the top and balsam note in the middle, gives off this burnt sugar territory. And if not for the note of milk that cools off and softens this impression, this perfume would probably have been, screechingly sweet. But helped with milk note again and sandalwood perhaps, this perfume gives me sort of vanilla coconut creme brulee imagery that's sweet but where creamy texture and a bit of coconut bitterness provides this extra smoothness and a bit of complexity. If I smell this fragrance in the air, sometimes it also gives me association with coconut vanilla chai latte that's frothy and sprinkled with burnt sugar crystals, because it certainly has this flowy liquid texture to it. So its sister is called squared vanilla, a bit of maths here. But let's have a look at the notes yet again. Well, here what we've got is quite something different, although definitely vanilla forward. On the top we've got vanilla flower, in the middle there's vanilla, praline and powdery notes, and finally in the base there's vanilla and benzoin. So this one is a lot more thick and dense vanilla. I really can detect praline on the forefront, as the fragrance suggests. This praline is of course sweet, very chocolatey, and there is powderiness to it as well, as if our chocolate praline has this caramelly gooey feeling, making the whole impression a lot more dense. Strangely, to me vanilla is sort of lost a bit here to the overall praline impression, giving way to a sweet powdery chocolatey effect. But make no mistake, while not being on the forefront, this vanilla is cleverly mixed in with other ingredients, nicely complementing the overall composition. So this one is a true colder season wear, of course, but very unisex because of both sweet gourmand profile and slightly bitter chocolatey territory that this one has. So next up is yet another quite popular release called Vanilla Haze by the brand Fugazzi. So as always, let's get reminded of the notes of this popular one. So on the top of what we've got is hazelnut, almond, coconut milk and mandarin. In the middle there's vanilla, tonka bean, jasmine. And in the base we've got caramel, amber, cashmere wood and musk. So this one is yet another, relatively new popular fragrance which came out just last year as far as I remember. And this year already they released an extrait de parfum flanker, which I haven't tested yet. This one contains, I think, saffron addition. But back to this one, EDT concentration. First thing I smell here is vanilla mixed in with caramel and hazelnut specifically supports this powderiness that this perfume enjoys. So you might think it's a heavy gourmand, but in fact it's not the case. It is gourmand indeed, but the whole composition has extremely translucent, non-thick effect which allows to wear this gourmand even in summer. But being on this airy side, this vanilla caramelly goodness is nonetheless very delicious, but at the same time, perfumey in the best way, meaning that with this one you will never come across as dessert working, different from many other vanilla heavy gourmands. Stressing this delicious gourmand quality, for once I'm struggling to come up with any dessert-like example. Or maybe it would be some caramel-based cocktail, which contains zero alcohol. I presume this soft, translucent effect is largely achieved here by the notes of musk and cashmere wood, so it's a brilliant juxtaposition of gourmand and soft, comforting, perfumey texture. And finally, to wrap this podcast with, we've got yet another in the quite recently popular release by the brand BDK. This one is called Vanille Leather, but let's get reminded of the notes first. So according to Fragrantica, what we've got here is the following. So it's violet and pink pepper on the top. In the middle we've got tuberose, orange blossom and jasmine. And finally in the base says vanilla, orris, leather, benzoin, oak and patchouli. So this one has already been featured in quite a few of my podcasts. This one along with Goutal release to me are probably the most unisex. So this one used to be extremely popular quite recently, but then silence. These days no one really talks about it anymore, unfortunately, even now that many of us are stepping into autumn-winter season. Probably everyone is far too busy with new releases, talking of which there's this new one of BDK dedicated to vanilla that's called Vanille Caviar, which I'm looking forward to test out, and luckily this release is already in stock in my local shops. Let me just briefly mention the notes of this new release. It's calamus, cassis on the top. In the middle we've got cacao, vanille, osmanthus, and in the base we've got labdanum, vanille and peru balsam. So looks great, doesn't it? We have all the delicious goodness, which is vanille and cacao. There's osmanthus also. Interesting, vanilla and osmanthus combo. All this is nicely complemented by presumably smoky labdanum and peru balsam. But what I'm curious about really is how it will connect with top notes of cassis and calamus. But okay, I promise to let you know once I've put my nose on it. But for now, let me continue with not so oldie but goodie Vanille Leather. The opening is very smoky, leathery to me in combination with buttery, moderately sweet vanilla. By the way, I sort of disagree with claims that leather note is subtle here. To my nose, it's very strong, smoky and prominent. But softened by vanilla, to me it gives this distinct reference to a smoked caramelly dessert, the likes of sticky toffee pudding. But like I said, the perfume is very leathery and balsamic, which is why, it wears beautifully on people preferring less classic feminine fragrances. This one is, of course, therefore late autumn-winter fragrance, which comforting qualities of creaminess and smokiness will be nicely contributing to a cold season with rain and snow outside. But that's it, guys. This wraps up the video for today. If you've liked this podcast, please give it a like. Please consider sharing your comments and subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.